Okay, so here we are, V-Book Chapter 18. Can a healer heal you? And just waiting for a couple of folks to gather here, and would ask you that when you check in, if you'd put yourself on mute, if you're in the live broadcast here, and best if you don't mute me. So unmute yourself if you want to get into the conversation at the appropriate time, and we'll be happy to include you. And if I don't, since Mary Beth's off today and I'm a one-man band here, then you can just, tap on your microphone or say hello or something, or just butt in, and feel free so to do. All right, so I think we're ready to go here. So I'm going to kick off and say, welcome everybody to Saturdays with Tara. I'm Robin, you're at the Law of Attraction Club, and shortly through me you'll be hearing Tara. I'm going to pass over to them, and well, it's really a collaboration, isn't it? So there'll be some parts of me managing this, and some parts of me will be a mouthpiece, and some parts of me will be engaged in what we're really on about here. So it's an interesting little dance that we do, but fun. So anyhow, welcome everybody, and I will begin. And if you're on the viewing audience, on the broadcast audience, if you want to ask a question, open up your Q&A, and then you'll be able to do that. So here we go. After that formal start, here we go, as this one says. And it is an interesting topic that we are dealing with here. It is one of your three biggies, isn't it? Health, money, and relationships. For these three topics seem to cover most of your questions. And yet the topic today is really about all of those things, even though we have talked about health ostensibly as the main topic here. We're talking about all of it really, because we're talking about the principles that sit behind everything. And so for health, read money. For health, read good relationships. It is the same topic. And yet it has its own interesting aspects, does it not? This business of health, this business of your physical apparatus and the way it works. And so we would begin here by saying that as we have talked about many times in these conversations of ours, that you do not live in one world, although it appears that way. The cultural conversation of the world that this one is in, your world may be similar, it will be different, but it may be similar in many respects. The cultural conversation in the world that this one is in is that there is one solid world, that you share it all and you deal with it. And that is very strongly embedded as in this one's world, as we are about to discuss here. And even though he has come to understand that that is not the case, that there are in fact multiple versions, and you are the one that's choosing your version, and you attract into that something that matches everything that matches. Yet even he has found that he sometimes relapses, if you will, into thinking of the world as one world. It's such an entrenched idea that it is difficult to, in one fell swoop, to move to a different understanding, that there is so much residual in these patterns that you have set up, which talks of the world as one world. This one was listening very early this morning to a radio interview, and it was with a Danish author, Carl Norsgaard, who was a novelist, but he has recently written 6 novels, 3,500 pages, which have been described as an autobiographical novel, which is sort of like an oxymoron. It was not even called a memoir, which is normally the term used for an autobiography which is taking some license with the so-called facts. But novels and autobiographies, as you know, are all works of fiction in your world, because you're the one that's creating them. They are just part of the fabric of what you are creating. But we digress. In this interview, Carl was discussing the fact, in fact, that the reason that it was called a novel, and the interviewer and he were both obviously coming at this from a one-world perspective. Because even though Carl said when he started these 6 books, the words just poured out of him. It's what we would describe as channeling, you see. But not understanding the process in the way that you have come to understand it in our conversations together. He described it as him not being the author, and then he felt like he could not describe it as an autobiography and could not describe it as a memoir. It was like something else was writing it. And this whole conversation with this interviewer was running around in circles trying to describe in one-world terms what was going on here. And of course they were failing to get to the heart of the matter. Because as long as you are thinking in terms of one world, you cannot answer these questions adequately. And then this one gets up and he goes downstairs for his coffee, and he's having a conversation, standing in front of a large screen TV with the news of the day about this plane crash here, and this war here, and this something over here, and this here, and the current traffic situation, and so on and so on. Very much a one-world approach, as if that's the only version of that news broadcast that is happening today. And of course, the person serving the coffee that he knows quite well was talking about some of her customers and made the statement, well, you know how people are. And this one smiled to himself. He was on the verge of saying, yes, they are how you know them to be. But he decided that this was not the time and place to try and have a year-long conversation with the person who was serving him his coffee. So he had just acknowledged that, yes, he knows how people are, and they are as he is creating them to be, because that by definition is the same thing. And so you are, if you will, immersed in this culture perhaps of a one-world approach, if your world is similar to this one. So it may not be easy for you to let it go. It may not be easy for you to stand in a different place and see it differently. But as we'll be talking about today, it is very difficult to make sense of all of this until you do. In fact, the law of attraction makes no sense at all until you do. The law of attraction says there's nothing you cannot be, do, or have. Nothing you cannot change. In other words, you can have your world be any way you want it to be. And if you can, so can this one, and so can that one, and so can that one. And if they can all have the world be as they want it to be, and their versions of the world that they want are different, how can they be sharing the same world? They cannot be, you see. And that is the point at which most people fail to understand the law of attraction. Because then they start tying themselves up in knots, trying to explain it in a one-world context, and you cannot do it. It does not happen that way. And so then there is watering down, then there is different versions, and there are other laws that have some effect, and so on and so on. And none of that is the truth of it all. And so we encourage you, even if you cannot get your mind around the fact that you are creating different versions and stepping into them, we understand that can be a difficult concept to sort of conceptualize, to think of. Nevertheless, just understand that it really is yours to create, and there are no limitations or restrictions on that. And then you've got it. So let us proceed then into our conversation today. If you or someone close to you is very ill and you've exhausted your options in the medical profession, is there an alternative? Is there a healer out there who can work miracles for you? Do some people have a special gift and the power to change others? Of course, if you're in this situation, you have someone close to you that is very ill, or you are in fact yourself very ill, then this becomes a very big question, does it not? Because if you exhausted all possibilities, now you start looking around for things that are not in the ordinary, extraordinary solutions. And before we dive into, as we say, the longer answer here, let us give the short answer, which is, if you can find someone that feels right to you, if you can find some process that feels right to you, we encourage you to go for it without reservation. Take any chance you can get to choose the positive aspects, to choose optimism, and you will reverse the flow and healing must follow. You see, it was those reservations and doubts and worries and fears that got you into this situation in the first place. It was those worries and reservations and doubts that got you into this situation in the first place. And so the negative focus that you had, or that person had, took you out of alignment. It took you out of alignment with Source, with who you are. And when you're out of alignment, there's no medical procedure, there's no alternative, no body and no thing that can change what course you're on. Even doing nothing, it's nothing that can buck that current. You see, there's that current that you need to change. So what is important here in the short answer is to choose whatever course feels best. Be it a medical choice in the regular medical track, or some alternative, or even meditating in the corner, it matters not. What is important is that you start to imagine once again what life will be like in a healthy body. The path ahead for you is to get yourself more and more to a feel-good place. Nothing is more important. There will be those, of course, who say, you shouldn't be telling sick people that it's entirely their own fault. And we would say, well, even though it is the literal truth of it, we would agree. In fact, it is not you, if it's not you who is ill, but someone close to you, it's not your job to tell them anything. As we move through this conversation here, you will see that in a very real sense, it has nothing to do with them. You alone are the creator of your world and everything in it. Whether that person gets better or not is not up to them, it's up to you. It's up to you. And we'll get to that as we move on here. If it is you that is ill, our intent here is very much to have you understand the nature of your world and your physicality. When you truly know who you are, you'll begin to see the power that you have to change anything, including things you've already created. From this place, you can most easily step into a world of all possibilities, and we will be encouraging you forward, not backwards to the thoughts that got you here, but forward to where you want to be. And then there are those in this one's world who say you mustn't give false hope. Well, either you believe in the law of attraction or you don't. If you don't, then that is an understandable, reasonable, logical position to take. And if you do, then we would say once again, we are not talking about that other person, we are talking to you. It is your hope that is relevant here. It is your hope that is the important first step. Hope is the doorway to belief. Belief is the doorway to expectation, and expectation is the doorway to manifestation. If you begin to understand who you are and the power that you have, then hope can begin your journey to a new world. Then you might ask, how is it possible to choose optimism, to choose hope, when I'm faced with the reality of this physical condition and the failure of all treatments to fix it? Well, we understand that when you have been practicing lifetime beliefs about your physicality, when you've been practicing lifetime beliefs about one world and the fact that you have to live in it and deal with it, it can be hard to move away from that. It can be hard to move to optimism in the face of what seems like mounting evidence of your mortality. But this is the important question. And to answer it, we'll move into our longer story. So let's look at what healers are. Is there someone or something out there capable of healing you? Well, this one has had an evolving series of answers to this question. This has been one of those questions that he has pondered for a long time. Let's begin back when he saw himself living in one world, a world solid and continuous, a world shared with every other living being. From a one-world context, his first answer back then was possibly yes. These people seem to exist. And as he began to understand the law of attraction, and throughout he knew that nobody can assert something into another person's experience. You cannot mess with somebody else's pie. So then he began to understand that if you are sick, it is your beliefs that are the important factor. You will always attract into your experience that which you choose to believe about yourself and your world. All disease, dis-ease, is the result of negative creative thought. And all cures are achieved by changing that flow of thought. Whether you get healed or not is always completely an inside job. To the extent that you believe in any process and use it, it will work. To the extent that there is doubt and fear, there is no doctor, there's no healer, there is no process on or off the planet that can heal you. So, you see, although it may be difficult to perceive that you are at choice on occasions, we want to encourage you that you always are. If you have been faced with a black and white situation where the medical profession perhaps has given up on you and all hope is gone and they are suggesting that you put your affairs in order, how is it then that you can possibly choose to see yourself as healthy? And the answer is you can. It is a choice, you see. It is not based on anything else but your will, but your decisions. You think that the way you perceive the world is you have observed it, you've seen what it is, and now you understand it. You look at the world, you prod at it, you read surveys, you look at experiments, you deal with it in daily life, you have experiences, and you say, this is what the world is like. This is what my body is like. I'm experiencing it, therefore I come to understand what it is like. And we say you have it completely backwards. The more decisions you make about it, the more it conforms to your decisions. And if you change those decisions, then you will change who you are in the world that you are in. So choice is always possible. We promise you, choice is always possible. And if it means that you start with some small choices, start with some small things, start with some small rays of optimism, and allow yourself to flirt with those, then you have begun the journey. And if you will continue with the journey, then you will discover that you grow more and more aware of who you are, your confidence grows, and now you step into the role of the creator that you are. So that is you. You can choose. So what then is the role of the healer in all of this? Well, in a one-world context, having then learned about the law of attraction, this one was tossing this around and tossing this around. I thought it has to be some sort of catalyst as an aid to a process that's already going on. Well, if you view your surroundings as one, well, that's about as good an answer as you'll get. But then that begs the question, are the healers powerless in this exercise? No, of course not. By law of attraction, they have the same control over their world as you have over yours. Well, then what determines their success rate has to be an inside job for them. And so if both parties are at play here in this game, in this dance, how can the healer and the patient both be calling the shots? Of course, the truth is, you cannot find a good answer to this until you can step back from a one-world view and start to recognize the degree to which all of your worlds are unique. You are not a tiny speck in a huge world. You are the creator of everything you experience. It goes like this. As you choose new beliefs, you step into new versions of you. Those new versions of you cause a matching version of the world to wrap itself around you. You intersect with the versions of people and things and plants and trees and solid objects that you attract. What looks like a shared world is actually a collage made up of all those intersections. And of course it looks seamless, it looks continuous, it looks solid, it looks real. But it is your made-up world and it is unique to you. From an infinity of possibilities, let's, for the minute here, let's look at two. You go to a healer and you've chosen to be highly confident of the outcome. Let's call that option A. If you know that you will be healed, if you are highly positive and probable about the fact that you will be healed, then you will have a positive outcome. If you are certain, you will be healed. And now let's look at another alternative. Remember, we are talking about an infinity of possibilities here. We are just picking two different points in that spectrum. So spectrum B, point B. If you are choosing something as a last resort and you are more worried that it's not going to work than you are confident, then you will get, of course, what you expect. It will not succeed. So these are two different versions of reality. Both exist, but by the nature of your consciousness, you are only aware of the one you chose to inhabit. You see, what you have chosen to enter into this game as you are playing it is that you have focused your consciousness down so that it only perceives one thing at a time. And we recognize that, of course, that is within your control. But let us be general here and say you have focused your consciousness down so that you only perceive one of these alternatives happening at a time. And so there you are. It looks like a continuous world. You actually chose the version you're going to inhabit. And so can you see here the power that you have? Do you choose option A for yourself, or do you choose option B for yourself? And next, what about the healer? It is the same. If you are the healer and you are confident, you will be successful. And you will intersect with the version of person A that knows that this will work, or at least feels very positive about the fact that this will work. If you are doubtful that you can succeed, then you will intersect with the version of that person who likewise doubts that you will be able to do anything for them. So can you see the way this works? No matter from which perspective you stand, you are always going to see a matching world, and you will attract into that world matching versions of everything. You see, in this, as we step you from a one world view of things, recognize that there are always, if you like, three perspectives, as we were talking yesterday with some of you. There is, in this one's world, a version of reality in which there are healers in South America. And these healers can do miraculous things. They can reach in and pull out the organs of somebody and change them and put them back, and they are healed. They can reach with their hand and do that. You see, how can that be possible? Well, we say, in a world of all possibilities, all things are possible. But can you see that there are three stories here? If you are telling the story about the healer, then you are telling the story about what you have created in your world. You are saying, this is possible, I've heard of it, seems a bit far-fetched perhaps, but then if you start to say, but that means the healer must be this, or the person who is healed must be this, now you see you are talking about things in your world that you're creating, because you are the one describing this, you are the one creating it. So that is one aspect of something. Everything you observe in your world is what you are creating. Then there's the aspect from the point of view of the healer. And then there's the aspect from the point of view of the person who is or is not being healed. And it is these three different aspects of reality that trips up this one perhaps more than anything, that he keeps getting trapped into automatically thinking of it as one world, when you can't get any answers that make sense in that from that perspective. You see, it is not the action that creates, it is belief. Now, of course, you are action-oriented creatures in a physical world, and doing things can help you believe, which really means help you choose to believe that a certain outcome will result. If you have bread and you want it toasted, you put it in the toaster and it gets toasted. And we promise you that none of that would happen if you did not know it was true, did not believe it to be so. So we are fully in support of you doing stuff, but only when it feels good. As always, we say line up with where you want to go. And when you are lined up with where you want to go, doing is easy. It feels like inspired action. It's like flowing with the current. You all have a chosen story. It is the particular way you are choosing to participate in this game of life on Earth. If being a doctor or a healer is the game you have chosen and you are enjoying that game, then we say play on. It can be a magnificent game. And if there are aspects of that game that are not to your liking, then we say choose to change those aspects. Expect something different. Or if another game looks like more fun, then go play that one. Just recognize that you are the one who's making the decisions here. If it is you who is unwell, pick the course of action that feels best, be it medical profession or otherwise, and get behind it. Line up with it. Forget all previously observed facts. In other words, if you can, ignore that body of knowledge that you know about who you are and what you are, because we promise you those facts are from the world you used to live in. Choose what you want to believe now. Now you have new choices. If you are unwell, forget all previously observed facts, make new choices. So, if it is not you but someone who is close to you that is unwell, you do not have to persuade them of anything. You see, in your world, you are the healer. You are all healers, you understand? You are all, if you like, creators. Do you want to step into version A of your world or version V of your world? Do you want to step into version A in which this person who's close to you is well, or do you want to step into version B in which this person who's close to you is sick? You see, it's not up to them or anyone that's working on them or healing them or doing processes for them. It's up to you. Now, we are not in any way saying here, of course, this is that you should ignore them. You can do whatever you wish, but just recognize here that it's you and your decisions and your expectations that are totally in charge. And you see, more generally to all of you, if your world has anything within it that you do not want, the answer is always the same. If the planet is in trouble, if global warming is happening, if disease and famine are endemic, if war continues and corrupt governments prevail, and you wish to bring about change, you do not have to gather all those who agree with you into world conferences or days of focus and prayer. If it's a fun thing to do, of course, then imagine it into beingness and go for it. But if it feels like struggle, if it feels like you are pushing against things, if you're pushing against that which you do not want, your cause is lost before you start. Because, of course, you are simply creating more of what is already there. You see, it's not about those others out there. It's all about your version of your world, the one you are choosing to step into. First, be clear about what you want to include in that world. And we use that word include here very carefully, because when we ask you what it is that you want, many of you will leap to, I want less of this, or I want less of that. I want the mortgage paid off. And by that you mean I want to be free of this debt. And of course the words are not important. And you could say, I want to be free of this debt. At the same time, you are thinking of prosperity. You are thinking of choice. You are thinking of abundance. And if so, those words are great. But if you say, I want to be free of this debt, and you are thinking of the debt, how difficult it is to pay that mortgage bill every month, then of course you are creating more of it, are you not? So choose what you want to include in your world. And then allow yourself to step into that version of the world. And how do you do that? You do that by imagining it. It is all thought, you see. Imagine that version and step into it. Step through a door, if you will, into a different version of the world in your mind. That is your work. Focus on that. If you must be obsessive about anything, be obsessive about dreaming into vision, into reality, that which you want. Because you are not a tiny speck in a huge world. You are the creator of everything you experience. Choose a new belief and you step into a new version of you. That new version comes with its own context. Immediately it wraps around you a collage of intersections with the matching worlds of others. This is your new world, unique to you. Enjoy it. Good. And so, if there are any of you that have any questions, we would be happy to interact and intersect with you. Giora, go ahead.
So, let's say I have discovered that I have a bad feeling suddenly about whatever.
Yes.
And I manage to release it. And I go to a better place in my mind. I feel spacious. And suddenly I feel hopeful and at ease. Is this a stepping into another version?
Absolutely it is.
Yay.
And the degree to which you have stepped into that other version is the degree to which you have made that move, you see. Because if that feeling of hope, perhaps, which is the first step, is faint and looming in the background, if you will, in your mind is the storm cloud of disaster, then you have not made a big step, have you? Now, we encourage small steps. We encourage any steps. We encourage any movement. Because any time you make a decision to do something like that, you are moving in the right direction. And so we applaud any movement. If you move from despair to anger, we applaud that. Because this is, in a sense, taking your power back to some extent. We do not recommend, of course, that you stay in anger. But any movement steps you into a new version of you. And if you have made that movement towards the positive end of things, if you have made that movement towards expecting what you want, then you have stepped into a version that is more like what you want. And so that can progress and progress and progress. And you will come to understand that, and you will come to expect those changes. You see, we want you to, let us do an exercise here with everybody, and that is to say, think now of something about your short-term future that you would wish to change. Maybe it's about today, or maybe it's about this week or this month or this year. And allow yourself to think a little more positively about that particular thing. What if this happened, and what if this happened, and what if this happened? And as you think of that, allow yourself to get a little pleasure from that. Allow yourself to see that you are now starting to expect something different. Allow yourself to expect it. And what has happened in that exercise, we promise you, is that you have stepped into a new version of the world. And to the degree to which you have made a movement, you will see change. You will see things moving in your direction. So small steps are good and interesting. And as you take them and you notice them, so your confidence builds. And as your confidence builds, of course, now you start to step into the role of the creator that you are. Now you start to step into the game in the way in which you intended here. Now you start to step into the game with a full deck of cards. Now you start to step into the game with the sure and certain knowledge that you are the one in charge, that you are the one that's creating. And as you step more and more into that role, you're able to step, if you like, back from the game to see it in perspective. You can see the game from the stands as well as at the same time as you're playing it on the field. That is a wonderful way to play the game. That is the way you intended to play it.
So when I leave my former version and leap into a new version, it's as if I died and I was born again.
In a sense, yes.
So we constantly die and are born again.
If you look at it from that perspective, yes.
Huh.
It is as certain as that.
Uh-huh.
Could you step back into the other version? Certainly you can, or something close to it.
Yeah.
In which case you will have died, if you like, in your words, and reincarnated in that previous version. And in no stage will you say, but this was a step from one place to another. It is like a flowing and a movement, is it not? It seems like continuous and flowing, and it looks like nothing is really happening except perhaps your luck has changed, or the weather is getting better, or whatever. Or your pain is easing, or your friend is becoming more optimistic, or your life is just getting better.
Yeah, I think there is it's a question that, I don't know, even the word important to me is not correct, but I think if we really find that we believe in that we accept it and we believe in that, then the fear of death eases up. We become much less afraid to try new things, to jump to new versions, see what that does, what this does.
Of course, it must be so. You have in this one's world, if your world is similar, he has spent a lifetime thinking of death as something dreaded.
Yes.
As we say, there is, the worst penalty you can hand out is the death penalty. And so you spend your whole lifetime avoiding death by all means. It is the boogeyman, is it not? And yet death is what you will have it be. You may, if you choose, experience nothing like it. You could ascend as an ascension, if you will. You could leave your body at any time if you chose to and do something else. What would happen to the body, you say? Well, the body does not exist in any case. And if other people are there with you, they will experience what they attract. So you don't have to worry about that, you see. Mm-hmm. It's yours to play with. So yes, even death itself is yours to play with. And the nature of it and what happens when you die is yours to play with. It is your creation. So, did we answer your question, Gura?
Yeah, of course.
Good. Good. Well, if there are no other questions, we will wrap up here. We will say that we have enjoyed this interaction immensely. And when we say that, when we use those words, by those words, we are telling you something about us, are we not? We are saying that we are attracting you into our experience even as you are attracting us. We're not just here doing your bidding. We're not just here summoned like the genie in the bottle to do your will. We have summoned you as much as you have summoned us. We are meeting together because we are a match. We are a match to you and your world, and you are a match to us and our world. And so here we are dancing together in this intersection. And we would say, If the concept of multiple versions of reality is sort of too fantastic to get your mind around, then just remember that nothing can get in the way of you and your creating. There is no such thing as getting in the way of you and your creation. There is no God, no power, no star sign, no luck, no fate, no world, no government, no person that can get in the way of what you want. There is no physical body that can stick you in a certain place and leave you in a certain way. It is yours to choose. And if you can get your mind around the fact that there are multiple versions of everything, well, that is fun too, but it is not necessary. Just remember that it's yours to play with. It is your sandpit. You can make the game, anything you want. You can make the rules anything you want. It's simply a matter of choosing to believe in what you want to believe, and the world wraps itself around you. So if you are the person that is unwell, recognize firstly that you're in charge. And if big steps are hard to take little ones. And if you are the person that has someone unwell in your experience, remember that it's nothing to do with them or the people that are operating or dealing with them or going through processes with them. It's up to you. You're the one that chooses everything. So choose wisely, imagine well, step into new worlds and have fun. Be light about all of this, you see. Be easy about it all. Have fun with it. Enjoy yourselves. And we are complete.